Alright everyone, welcome back. Apologies there for the technical difficulties and obviously the lobby restart, but we are back and the race is about to get underway. You can tell me in the chat if I have any audio issues or stream issues or anything like that, but hopefully we should be all good and ready for this Italian Grand Prix, especially after a very interesting qualifying, and it was extremely close at the top between Morawiecki and Eckelmeyer, and hopefully that means we should have some good racing action for the lead of the Grand Prix. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. A very entertaining qualifying. Thought you guys could make out of it. But yeah, very quick lap time by Morawiecki and Eckelmeyer and Phil McKee. And all the other drivers that were very close to the top, and now it's just time to convert that into a good race result. But yeah, we'll see, as the 5 red lights should come on any moment, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the drivers now just getting their setups finalized and their strategies ready. I've never actually commentated on a race in Imola on this new game, at least, so the strategy is going to be as much a surprise for me as it is going to be for all of you. But you can see the race start is now ready, and we do have 5 red lights. They are gone and we're already away. What kind of start is it for our poleman of Morawiecki for the run into turn number 1 on the medium compound tires? It's a brilliant start up against Eckelmeyer. Phil McKee is quite close behind, and he's already trying to take P2 away from Eckelmeyer. Eckelmeyer having to go off of the circuit to avoid Phil McKee there, and now Jack Lav has just slipped up into P3. And now once again, Eckelmeyer is being under pressure, this time from Oscar, who now he himself is turning attack into defense because he's got Liam Stevens on the inside coming into turn number 7. Very close between the two of them on the exit. Liam Stevens is going to have the inside for this next turn number 8, but he actually decides to turn off the ERS and back out of that move. Doesn't want to risk going side by side at such high speeds, but off of the race start, Morawiecki is leading this Grand Prix, and the best start you could ask for from pole position.
Yeah, very good start. They're very unlucky for Paul Eckelmeyer as well. Got a good start, but side by side with Phil McKee. I don't know exactly what happened there, but he did feel the need to cut the curb, and is now in 4th place. Back down the grid, not too much going on in terms of position change. You've got the few odd overtakes. Louis Welsh, one of those, making up 3 positions already on this opening lap in P15. He's going to have his sights set on the points as Morawiecki finishes the first lap of this race with a 2/10 gap to Theo McKee, and that's getting smaller. Theo McKee just backing out a little bit of going for any sort of move. He wants to wait until there's a steady DRS train before he decides to overtake and go for the win. Jack Lav as well, very close behind him, and Paul Eckelmeyer and Oscar. I can't ban that train does go on. Obviously, that's a DRS train. I'm not going to go through every single name. But yeah, everyone's starting to find their position, find their rhythm in this race.
Yeah, and out of everyone so far, Louis Welch with the best start, as you mentioned, gaining 2 positions so far as he lost that position to Laminin there. and he's now back up into P15, but not actually too many position changes. Obviously, the big one was Imola having to cut the first chicane there, which lost him 2 positions and dropped him down to P4, which is obviously not ideal for the Williams man, but he's now just got to try and recover and continue on with his race. He's still in that top 4, he's still in the battle for the lead of the Grand Prix, and obviously this is only the start of the race, so hopefully not too much to worry about just yet. Most drivers actually starting on the medium compound of tyre as well, so there's only a few drivers on the hards. That includes Reach in P9, we have Dowds in P11, Hall in P13, Welch in P16, and then Marquis down in P20. So yeah, those are all the guys who are currently on the hard compound of tyres, so they'll be a lot stronger come the end of the Grand Prix. Everyone else, though, will be battling it out for positions in the early stage of this Grand Prix, as we've already seen. So yeah, it's good to see that we've had some battles so far, but already these guys settle down quite quickly. Would have expected them to be a lot more feisty, but obviously these guys know it's all about the long game. You have to make your strategy work, and the most pushing you're going to be doing is at the end of the Grand Prix. So the guys pacing themselves, they obviously have a good understanding of this circuit, and they know the end of the race is when you gain positions at any circuit for that fact. But we're already on lap 3 and beginning lap 4 as Morawiecki ends off this 3rd lap, and the laps are going to absolutely fly by at this circuit because they are so short, and 32 runs at the DRS straight. Hopefully that means we'll see plenty of moves.
Yes, it does. Yeah, so Imola, not the best. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I lost my voice. Not the best for overtaking there. As you do tend to see those trains fall, but we do have some battles at the front now. Phil McKee deciding now is the time to overtake Franek Morawiecki. Addition to that, we've got yellow flags. Is that Paul Eckelmeyer out of this race? There's a big collision around that first sector there. Multiple people with damage there. Multiple people spun round, but the big name of that, Paul Eckelmeyer, going for the race win, is now out of this race. I didn't see exactly what happened. I think it was to do with going for a move with Jack Lav. But he spun around and several other drivers made contact, but we do have a safety car now, full course safety car, so that is going to neutralize absolutely everything, and everyone is going to be bunched up once again. But big news from that, Phil McKee as well, getting into 1st place.
Yeah, I was just able to catch the end of that incident between Eckelmeyer and Lav, and obviously through the first chicane of the lap time, it's extremely difficult to leave your fellow driver's space, and obviously Lav and Eckelmeyer just were not able to get it right between themselves. Eckelmeyer hit into the side of Lav, and that is why he was spun out and crashed into by some unsuspecting driver who was just trying to go on his racing line. So a big shame for Eckelmeyer, and quite unlucky. He wasn't able to complete the move at the first chicane, but one man who was, like you mentioned, Phil McKee, promoting himself up into the lead. But here we go, because he's just gone for an interesting strategy, to say the least. He's boxed on lap 4 of 32, and that means he's going to try to stretch these hards to the end of the Grand Prix, or is he going for a 2-stop? Obviously time will tell us, but if he is going to the end of the Grand Prix, those hards are, well, obviously they're going to fall off of a cliff come the end of the Grand Prix, but this will save him 22 seconds or so in the long run, so it might work out for him. Very, very interesting though, especially when you're in the lead of the Grand Prix. Taking a big risk like that, it's definitely not needed, but Phil McKee, confident in himself, confident in his engineer that's obviously helping him along the way, and hopefully this strategy can work out for his sake. Meanwhile, other people coming into the pit lane, we also have Andres Lopez, who decides to go for the soft compound of tyre, which means he's definitely on that 2-stop strategy. Lenore also on the hards. Then we have Louis Welch going for the mediums, Dowds on the softs, and Liam Stevens on the hards. So a bit of variety in this at this stage of the race already. We're only on lap 5 of 32, but yeah, stretching those hards to the end of the Grand Prix. Do you think that might be the strategy they're going for, or are they going for an aggressive 2-stop here?
It doesn't. I think going for a 2-stop on a track where it's fairly difficult to overtake, I think that's the wrong call. So I'm assuming it's going to be a 1-stop, which could work. I'm not sure how much of a factor tyre deg is around here, so that could really impact them towards the end of the race. Obviously it will. But yeah, it just depends how much it's going to save them. I mean, what's a pit stop around 20 seconds, so we'll see. It's difficult to judge. Yeah, obviously we don't know what the tyre wear is going to be like for them. I don't think it's the right call personally. It's only been 4 laps into this race. I feel like sticking with the usual strategy is probably the smarter idea, but I don't know. Why not try things?
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you on that one. But time will tell us whether McKee, and not only himself, but we have Ewan in P16 and then obviously Stevens in P19. We'll see whether or not they are on the right strategy. We also see Cameron Dowds. He went to the softs for 1 lap and he's straight back on to the hard compound of tyre. So obviously he started on the hards, he's gone on to the softs, so he's got his 2 different tyre compounds for the race, and now he's back onto the hards for the rest of it. So obviously playing it very wisely here on the safety car, getting all his tyre compound in so he doesn't have to make any more stops. But that still leaves the question of whether or not it is the right strategy. I can't see why the likes of Stevens and Dowds have gone for it. Obviously, being a little bit further down in the field, you have to take risks like this and take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you. But Fionn McKee, I cannot wrap my head around that one. Being in the lead of the Grand Prix and taking a huge risk like that. Yeah, I just don't understand that one. But it does mean that Morawiecki will be taking the lead of this Grand Prix, so I'm sure he'll be very happy that McKee has made that pit stop. And now our top 3 looks a lot different than it did on the race start. We still obviously have our pole man Morawiecki in P1, but then we also have the 2 TF10 men of Jack Lav and Oscar Villacampa in P2 and P3. So a very different order at the top now. Safety car back into the pit lane, and Morawiecki will be leading us away for the safety car restart.
Yeah, we'll see when he decides to go here. Is he going to bunch the pack up? Yes, he is, but he does go pretty fairly early on. But before the line, Jack Lav trying to use the battery, trying to get a good run on him. Behind him, Oscar Villacampa fighting Bogdan Moldovan, as Moldovan's going to go around the outside, but he's going to get boxed in, and Villacampa's going to be able to keep the position. And they're going to be under pressure as well from Tony Richet, and Bogdan Moldovan loses time there, a lot of time there, as he just loses his run as they're fighting. And now he's going to be fighting with Drake Dempsey for P5, so he's gone from about provisionally P3 to P5, but now P6, and he's gone off the track. And he's going to lose even more positions now as he tumbles down the order into P10, fighting for P9 with Andras Franco. But that fighting, that aggressiveness has really cost them, as there's other battles as well. Jane Tripkov trying to go around the outside of Thomas Lamine, gets pushed off the track there and has to concede. Meanwhile, at the top, Franek Morawiecki leads Jack Lav by just under a second. It's about 7/10, so quite a big gap considering it's only been 1 lap. Behind Jack, though, Oscar Villacampa, followed by Tony Richet and Drake Dempsey in P5. So very close there. Andre Lopez down the order, fighting Fionn McKee, the guy who's just put on those hard tyres, and he's got ahead. So those fresh soft tyres, obviously they're going to have way more grip, and they're going to be impeding Fionn McKee's race. But Fionn McKee knows that in the long run, as it stands, he's provisionally first, as he doesn't have to pit again. Potentially, at least. That's if these tyres last, which I'm not sure if they probably will. But nonetheless, that's what's going on right now. But yeah, Franek Morawiecki extending that gap to about 8/10. Lost a little bit more now as Holland Marquise loses a bunch of positions. Didn't exactly see what happened there, but he has dropped down to P17 now.
Yeah, Marquise with an optimistic look around the outside there, gets the door shut firmly on him and has to cut the first chicane, falls down at P16 because of that. But Moldovan, I don't think I've seen a lap more unlucky than that for any driver I've ever commentated on. Moldovan got pushed around by everyone and then shoved off the circuit by Drake Dempsey and all the way down to P10 after being in that top 5. So unlucky, and he's just another victim of the poor driving standards, but he's still in this race, he's still in P10, and now he's just got to try to focus, take the good from this, except that he's still in this race and not spun out or anything like that, and hopefully he can still run in these points and get himself a decent position in the race. But you can be sure that he is going to be driving with a level of anger here after what has just unfolded. We see Fabos and McKee battling it out for P13. McKee obviously not too concerned with making up positions currently, but he can take the positions where he finds them, so he gets himself up into 13th position ahead of the PSR man. But further towards the front of the field, not too much action. Drake Dempsey, though, we may see a post-race penalty for him after that incident with Moldovan. I mean, completely shoved him off of the circuit and straight into the gravel, causing him to lose, I think it was about 4 positions. So Drake Dempsey obviously being aggressive and maybe a little bit too aggressive at this early stage of the race, and he currently finds himself in P5, sandwiched between 2 hard compound tyre runners, and Hall and Reish looking very, very good for the latter stage of this race, being on the hard compound tyres and being in such a high position. Once you get onto those mediums and everyone else is on the hards, you've only got to make up a few positions before you're onto the podium and even into the lead of the Grand Prix. So it's looking very, very good for the hard compound tyre runners currently.
Yeah, it certainly is. Andres Franco getting a 3-second time penalty. Curry in P9, that's not going to help him at all. Back at the top, Jack Lav has got a really good run on Franak Morowiak, but decides not to use it. Additionally, I think Tony Richer or Drake Dempsey was looking quick, but again decides to back out. You only really want to go for a move here if you're going to get it before the braking zone, because going side by side in the chicane, as we've already seen, is very risky and could potentially cost you a lot of time. In the meantime, though, we still do have the top 5 also very close together. Wilson Hall in P6, about 8 tenths behind. He's going to want to try and close that gap. If he can stick with these medium runners, then that's going to really help him later on in this race. Tony Richer is also on the hard tyres there, so keep an eye out for him later in this race when he's on the faster compound of tyre than everyone else. Yeah, at the moment, pretty much everyone in the same DRS train. Phil McKee and Bogdan Moldovan, though, are fighting, and Phil McKee's just on the limit of DRS, we'll say, although he's going to be close enough to keep that this time round. So Phil McKee is making up positions on those hard tyres. He's still looking incredibly quick as he was before. But yeah, he doesn't want to overwork his tyres too much now, because they're going to be completely destroyed by the end of this race if he is going for that one stop.
They definitely will be, and we're seeing plenty of battling in the field now, especially for this P3 position, as Reach, he saw the door closing on the second apex, decided it's not worth risking it, so he backs out of that move and keeps himself in that P4 position. Trezak has actually retired. That's at the first chicane, and that's a retirement on circuit because his car is still moving. So maybe he just got caught in an unlucky incident and then instantly rage quit. I'm fairly sure that will be a post-race penalty for him. I don't think you're allowed to retire on circuit. We're now seeing a battle for P11. Lopez continuing to promote himself through the field on the soft compound of tyres. But so far, in 11 laps, as Moldovan makes a mistake there through Akko and Arali, and that might leave him vulnerable to Ewan behind. But yeah, we've seen plenty of moves in these first couple of laps, and so far, obviously Imola, it's not the easiest to race on. It's very tight for space, but at the same time, the defending and attacking in this race has been somewhat questionable, you could say. So not ideal for everyone who's been a victim of that so far, and there's definitely been a few. But you can now see Moldovan's into the pit lane after 10 laps on his mediums. We're also seeing Louis Welch now make the move on Ewan down the pit straight, gets himself up into P12. But you can see it's both of the Alfa Romeos into the pit lane, so Fabos is actually going to have to double stack with his teammate, which is not ideal for his Grand Prix. But they've both gone onto the hard compound tyres, so they have only done 11 laps on the mediums, and they're deciding that they want to do 20 on the hard. So maybe either the mediums are not great at handling the degradation, or the hards are the favoured tyre, and maybe that's why everyone started on the mediums. I do believe that was the case at Saudi Arabia on the previous game. So maybe something similar here in Imola. McKee, he's gaining plenty of positions, you must say. Even on those hard compound of tyres, he's overtaking all of these medium runners. So maybe the medium tyre wear is a lot higher than we think it is, because McKee, once again, he's getting very close to the back of Leminin now, and he might even get all the way back up to P1 before everyone's already made their pit stop. So McKee, it looks like so far in the short term at least, this has been a very good strategy for him as he makes another 2 positions, because our race leader Moraviak is into the pit lane, and now the test of the strategies has begun, and this is where we really see who's going to come out on top in this race.
Yeah, he's going to want to have a really good outlap here. It's going to be difficult on those cold, hard tyres, but now he's got to set his sights for the next 19 laps on catching McKee, who's quite a few seconds up the road, but we'll see what the tyres can do. We know he's a quick driver, and he's just got to consistently be pumping out those quick times. We'll just have a look at him on this outlap as well. See how he manages those cold, hard tyres. As I said, very slippy, and can really cost you time and position if you don't nurse them in correctly. In the meantime, the first 2 guys, Jack Lav and Oscar Villacampa, those guys will be looking to pit fairly soon. The undercut is incredibly powerful on this game, so you definitely don't want to be undercut, especially on a track where overtaking is not too easy, doesn't come very naturally. But I'm sure we'll see Jack Lav coming into the pits now, come around the final corner, and I'm sure we'll see him pull in. And never mind, we don't, and Oscar Villacampa also decides to stay out. But Drake Dempsey does decide now's the time to pit.
So once again, we see more people coming into the pit lane. This time it's the 2 TS men of Tripkov and Dempsey. Let's see where they come out relative to Moraviak. I do believe Dempsey was in the top 6 before all of the pit stops. So Moraviak should come out a decent 5 seconds ahead or something around that time frame. But let's see though, Drake Dempsey still in the pit lane, and Moraviak approaching the first chicane. Moldovan has actually gone and set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix with a 16.7 there. He's currently P15, and actually he's on the back of Tripkov, who's just came out of the pit lane. Wasn't able to make a move into that first chicane, but Moldovan is well and truly back into that battle for the higher positions as he was earlier on in the race. Dempsey though, how far has he come out behind? He's 3 seconds behind Moraviak. So has that undercut worked out for Moraviak? Obviously that's a nice gap to have, but you do have to think Dempsey was about 5 positions behind Moraviak, so it would have more or less been 3 seconds either way. So maybe that undercut hasn't worked out perfectly for Moraviak. Obviously, we'll get more information once we see a couple more drivers come into the pit lane, which we are currently seeing with Villacampa and Jack Lav both boxing now. And these guys are going to start to form a bit of a DRS train. McKee has just overtaken Wilson Hull into the first chicane. And McKee, he's on an absolute rampage currently, overtaking driver after driver after driver, and he's almost into the lead of the Grand Prix. Not only is he almost in the lead, he has no more stops to make. So if those tyres truly can last to the end of the Grand Prix, and I think they might, McKee is in a very, very good spot.
Yes, certainly. He's looking incredibly quick there. His sights are going to be set on Tony Richer next up for the lead of this race. Richer still to pit, but we'll see how long he decides to take these hard tyres. Additionally, I saw Jack Lav, Jack Lav Box, sorry, not Jack Lav, who am I thinking of? No, was Jack Lav not fighting for the lead? I'm sure he was.
Was indeed. He was in that battle in the top 3.
15. That might just be the undercut actually, proving to be powerful. Yeah, because Oscar Villacampa down in P13 as well. But those guys have really lost out by the looks of things. Lost a few positions at least, certainly, because Drake Dempsey and Franek Morawiecki and Thomas Leminin, Jen Chupkov, those guys all have been able to get through. I think that's because Jack Love was fighting. I saw a bit of fighting. I can't remember who exactly it was with, but that has cost him time. But yeah, Franek Morawiecki, it's 20 seconds off Phil McKee. So exactly 20.3. So we have about, what is that, 14, 15, 16, 17 laps of this race left. He's going to have to be catching it just over even a second a lap to Phil McKee. So you know what, Phil McKee is going to be very confident that he can potentially win this race. Tony Richet is pitted, so he's not going to have to worry about him. He's just going to have to be pumping in those consistently fast, or just consistent lap times that are enough, because Franek Morawiak might not be closing in too much now, but towards the end of this race will be closing in massively. He's already taken almost half a second this lap. So yeah, but he's got to gain a lot more than that if he wants to win this race.
Yeah, he definitely will, and as the race goes on, like you mentioned, those times will get exponentially quicker relative to Fionn McKee, so hopefully for the sake of Morawiak, he can catch up. Currently, he's in a very good spot. He's got Drake Dempsey 2.6 seconds behind, so I was saying that undercut might not have worked. It's worked a treat, because he's got no pressure from behind, and his main focus now is to drive and drive quickly, as we see Tony Rees trying to make the move there on Moldovan. Had a little look in the inside line into turn number 16, isn't able to complete that move just yet, but he might be able to on this pitch straight. Now pulls the inside line, and that DRS extremely powerful on this F123 game. He's able to fly past, as now we're seeing about into the first chicane. Villacampa and Tripkov trying to go side by side, but Villacampa deciding to back out of that particular move. He's seen plenty of carnage at the first chicane already, deciding he doesn't want any part in it, so he's going to hold that P11 position for now. But drivers continuing to box. You can see P6 to P2 yet to come into pit lane. Although no, it's Liam Stevens, Dowds and Ewan. Actually, they're on the same strategy as McKee. My mistake. The people who are yet to box are Wilson Hall and Louis Welch. Wilson Hall really going quite far on those hards. Although actually most people only went about 10 to 12 laps on the mediums anyway, so he's pretty much on the predicted strategy for starting on the hards. Meanwhile, Louis Welch on the two-stop strategy, and he's currently on the mediums. He's going to have to decide whether he wants to go to another set of mediums, softs, or even hards. We'll see what he does, as he's now being overtaken for that third position spot. So maybe those mediums beginning to fall off. Obviously, we saw a lot of guys on the mediums begin to drop off at around lap 11, and he's done 13 laps on them. Tony Rees now on his mediums. He's the only driver on the mediums, or apart from him and Lopez, who have boxed just a few laps ago. They're both on the mediums, and Rees obviously showing he has quite a bit of pace at this stage. Lopez, the other driver who boxed for mediums, is now up into P15 after getting past Franco, but is looking very interesting in that midfield battle. But Morawiak and Fionn McKee, they look like the two main contenders in this race. Only problem is Morawiak has a lot of traffic to get through, because he's got to overtake Stevens, Dowds, Ewan before he can get to Fionn McKee. So it's going to be very difficult for Morawiak to challenge for that race lead.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Getting through traffic is going to be very difficult for him. Especially when his tyres aren't going to be in tip-top condition either. It's just about whether they have enough of an advantage over those front few guys, if that's going to be enough. Wilson Hall decides now is the time to come into the pits. The gap now, beyond McKee, is 16.6. So it's come down quite a bit actually. We've got about, 14 laps left? So he still needs to gain about a second a lap to get ahead and win this race, plus overtaking everyone. So it's going to be some sort of a fight if he wants to do this. He's just going to have to be pushing lap after lap after lap. Yeah, definitely something to look out for. In the meantime, we do have some battles lower down the field. I know Tony Richet just gained a position on Jack Lav. Jack Lav really put off by other drivers undercutting him now, and really not looking in the best position. Yeah, still drivers going side by side. Oscar Villacampa trying to get past Jane Tripkov, wasn't able to do it. So Franek Morawiak leads that pack, kind of. I say leads, he is quite a few seconds ahead of Drake Dempsey. Drake Dempsey more leading that pack of cars as they strive towards those older hard runners, apart from Louis Welsh as well. Louis Welsh pitted for mediums, I believe, under that safety car. So those are definitely not going to go to the end. He's definitely going to have to pit again, which probably sucks for him. And as I say that, he does come into the pits, and he's going to come out fairly near the back of the field, which is really unfortunate for him. But oh well, that happens, unfortunately. So Theo McKee currently leading with 2.2 seconds to Ewan Lenore, and about 15.1 seconds to Franek Moriak. So the gap is coming down very quickly here, but it's going to have to keep doing that if Franek Moriak wants to win this race.
Yeah, definitely will. Moriak in a bit of a difficult position. He's now currently 11.5 seconds away from Cameron Dowds, and actually there's a little battle going on for the podium between all of the guys who boxed early for those hards. We've got Ewan, Stevens and Dowds all in that battle for second position, and then Theo McKee obviously 2.3 seconds up the road, looking very, very comfortable, probably conserving his tyres at this point, so he has something to fight back with come the end of the race. With 12 laps to go, Moriak needs to be gaining more than a second per lap. I'm sure he will be gaining more than a second per lap for about the final 6 or so, but currently he definitely needs to be pushing as hard as he possibly can, and that the car will allow him to. So yeah, a very difficult position for him if he wants to win this race. Liam Stevens switching positions with Ewan as they head through the first chicane of the lap time. Stevens up into that second position, and our championship leader currently P4 and on for a decent result in this race. Although once Moriak and the rest of the field catch up, he's going to have a difficult time defending, as currently 7 laps of wear is the difference between Dowds and Moriak, and that is going to be about 5/10 difference or so. So yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult to defend, but if any circuit you're going to be able to do it at, this is the one to do it. One DRS zone, if you manage your ERS correctly, you might just get away with this bold strategy. Meanwhile, Liam Stevens actually slowly but surely catching up to our race leader, so Theo McKee is definitely slowing it down and conserving his tyres. He must be for what will be the final few laps of the race, to have that little bit of extra grip. Meanwhile, Moriak and Drake Dempsey are trying to pull away from the rest. Drake Dempsey slowly catching up and almost breaking the DRS to Leminin behind, and if he does that, Leminin will be in a very difficult position because he won't be able to keep up and battle for that P6 position. So we have an interesting prospect for the end of this race, and I'm excited to see how it all unfolds, as we're seeing a little bit of a battle between the 3 guys in the podium. And actually Cameron Dowds has just stolen 2 positions away from Ewan and Stevens and gotten 2 moves done in the chicane. Sad I missed that, but hopefully these guys will be able to provide us with some good action come the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. Leading a half 1-2 at the moment. Theo McKee is. I'm sure he will love that. But yeah, the gap to front at Moriak. It's not coming down as quick as it was before. It's pretty much maintained around 13 seconds so far this lap, which is really not good for Moriak there. He's really going to have to try and just find something, but obviously when you both got when you both got worn tyres, the effect kind of lessens. So it's just about whether Theo McKee's tyres can hold on. I mean, there's always the risk of him getting a puncture as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of things for him to think about. Yeah, Moriak at the moment, I'm sure you'll see he's just going to be completely pushing, just completely trying to close that gap. And then once he catches up to Liam Stevens, Ewan Lenore, Cameron Dowds, it's just going to be about getting through that as quick as possible. I'm sure Cameron Dowds, being Theo McKee's teammate, will be more than happy to try and slow Franek Moriak down if it means McKee gets to win this race.
Yeah, definitely, as we're actually seeing a move here. Tripkov getting past Leminin, and not only Tripkov, Villacampa as well. He's trying to launch an offensive on Tripkov into the first chicane, can't do so. But Leminin lost the DRS to Drake Dempsey, and now, like I said, he's going to have a hard time defending. He's actually under pressure from Donny Riche coming through turn number 5. Was able to defend that so far, but into the 7th turn, he does not see Riche on his outside line, squeezes him onto the grass. Riche having to lift off the throttle because of that. These guys extremely aggressive with each other. They don't want to give anyone an inch in this race. They're just deciding that if you're going to go side by side with me, I'm going to push you around until you leave me alone. So yeah, I don't know why these guys are so aggressive. Maybe because of how little opportunities there are for overtaking in this race, and they just want to conserve their position as much as they possibly can. But it's definitely a shame to see. But Moraviak, once again, slowly but surely catching up to the guys ahead. And Drake Dempsey is now into his DRS. These two guys have pulled away from everyone else. As you can see, Tripkov not in that DRS. Lopez and Jack Lav side by side through the final turn. And Lopez getting a very nice exit out of there. He's able to secure that P11 spot. Tripkov now under pressure from Villacampa. Leminin and Tony Reich also battling. So many battles now are beginning to unfold in this midfield. Tony Reich back up into P9 ahead of Leminin on the medium compound tires. He's still got some grip in them, but those tires are going to begin to fall off, and he has actually gone for a mega undercut. I haven't even realized that. He's trying to stretch these mediums for about 16 laps, and the most we've seen them go for is about 14, and that was with Jack Lav. And well, you can see where he is now, currently down in P12 on the hards. So Tony Reich, he's gone risky there as Lopez has just sent one to the inside of Leminin there. Pretty late, you must say, from the Ferrari driver. He's up into P10 as he pushes Leminin off of the circuit and into the points paying positions, although it won't matter too much because Lopez does actually have a time penalty. But you can see Moraviak, the gap is now starting to come down a lot quicker than it was a few laps ago. It's coming around 6, 7, 8 tenths a lap, so he is slowly but surely getting quicker and quicker. But while that's happening, we're also running out of lap times. Only 8 to go, including this one, and it's looking less and less likely that Moraviak can actually win this race. But what do you think? Do you think those top 4 are on the perfect strategy in this race?
It's really difficult to judge, but time is running out for Franek Morawiec, and the gap is not coming down enough. So I have to say, I think the top 4 could be safe here. The gap at around 11 seconds between Phil McKee and Franek Morawiec. So it's, yeah, there's just not enough time. He's not gaining as much as he needs to be to go for the race win. So Phil McKee and Cameron Dowes really could have a Haas 1-2 here, which is such a good result for them. Especially Cameron Dowes and Ewan Orr starting in P11th and P10 respectively. So yeah, I think when we said pitting under the safety car was the wrong call, I think we've just been completely proven wrong here. To be fair, maybe I'm speaking too early because his tyres are still going to die even more, and there's 7 laps, but that is 7 laps of intense where, okay, Harlan Marquis retiring on the pits, and my heart just jumped a little bit then in the fear of a safety car. But no, it is going to be safer now. So yeah, it's just about keeping it clean, keeping it safe, and not losing too much time with the worn tyres.
That is exactly the strategy that they've got to go with. We're seeing Drake Dempsey now overtake Moraviak, so he's also in the scene for a possible podium in this race. For the Campa involved in a big battle in the midfield, as Tony Reich tried to get past Lopez, wasn't able to do, or no, Lopez has actually gotten past both Reich and Villacampa, surprisingly. So interesting to see that he's been able to do that, but a brilliant job from him. We saw a similar thing with Dowds on Ewan and Stevens, but we saw a very respectful battle there between Reich. That was at turn 7 and 8. Very good to see them leaving the space while they went side by side, and that's the type of battles we love to see. But now Lopez is in the scene. He's gotten himself ahead of both Reich and Villacampa, but once again that time penalty is going to drop him all the way down to a possible P12 because the Minin doesn't have a time penalty. So yeah, it's brutal when you do get a time penalty like that, and after what we saw in qualifying, we did expect some track limits warnings. And you can see it has affected a couple of the drivers, Lopez, Louis Welch, Moldovan and Franco, all with 3-second time penalties. And, well, obviously for Moldovan and Franco, it doesn't affect them too much. But for the other two guys, they will be losing quite a few positions because of that. Because obviously in PCF3, everyone's so close. So if you are losing 3 seconds at the end of the race, you are going to be dropping down 5+ positions. We're now seeing Moraviak re-overtake Drake Dempsey into the first chicane, and I'm sure those guys are going to continue to switch positions. Louis Welch getting ahead of Leminin through the first chicane. Everyone just switching positions in the DRS. Obviously Drake Dempsey and Moraviak doing it more often than everyone else because they're trying to work together to close up that 7.4 second gap, to get closer to the podium positions and hopefully get themselves some big points in this race. But currently it's looking very, very difficult. 5 laps to go. Leminin side by side with his teammate Hall as he lets him through there through the 8th turn. This is looking very interesting, and it doesn't actually look like Moraviak is going to catch up to those top 4. But like you mentioned, those tyres, once they begin to drop off, they really start to drop off. And Moldovan's actually retired from the race. Here's a safety car that's just been released from the pit lane. Moldovan, that is on the exit of Aqua Minerale. I don't know if he was battling with someone, or I do believe he just completely lost the car because he wasn't actually near anyone. So he's lost the car, crashed into the wall. Now everyone is into the pit lane for the soft compounded tyres, and this really starts to change up the dynamic.
Yeah, it certainly does here. That is big. I was going to talk about how significant those two battling, Morawiecki and Dempsey were, but it's not really, it's obviously it's not going to mean anything anymore, as everyone comes into the pits, apart from Wilson Hall, who's on 9-lap old mediums, so not really going to be able to do much against fresh softs. So now it's just a case of who can survive this. What's it going to be, like a 3-lap sprint to the end? Cameron Dowd's sitting out there as well. Obviously he's had to double stack with his teammate, but at the end of the day, pitting is the only thing, the only real option he has there. So yeah, Phil McKee, I would say, is still the favourite to win this race. Franek Morawiecki just has to make up too many positions in too little time. We barely saw any overtakes in the first 3 laps. But yeah, it is just going to be a sprint race to the end. Everyone's going to be taking risks. I'm a bit confused as to why Wilson Hall decided to stay out, but maybe he was running in lower points positions, so at that point it's more just, why not? I guess if there's only 3 laps left, and he's only on 9-lap old mediums, which are going to be worn, but not too worn. He's not going to lose too many positions because there's not going to be enough time, so he's probably actually gained by staying out here.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting one, but it is actually viable from Wilson Hall, and if he can just hold on to as many as possible in these final 3 laps, he's still on 9-lap mediums. They should have somewhat decent grip for the final few laps, and if he can just hold on to them, he might be able to get himself a top 6, maybe top 7 or so. So we'll see how that develops, but obviously confident in the pace that he has on these tyres. Only problem is, it is a bit risky. We've seen what the drivers have been doing to each other, and that's when they weren't in a sprint race on the soft compound tyres for 3 laps. So I'm sure we're going to see a little bit of chaos, so it's risky Wilson Hall for him to do that, but it was either that or no points at all. So he's decided this is his chance to get some points in the championship, move himself up a few positions, and hopefully he can do a good job with that. But Morawiecki and Drake Dempsey down in P6 and P7. All the hired runners that were further up the field, they don't have to worry about their tyres falling off a cliff. They're safe now. Now what they have to worry about is making sure that their racecraft is good enough to not only hold their position but overtake and get themselves hopefully onto the podium. And for Cameron Dowds, our championship leader, got a little bit unlucky, I must say. Obviously had to double stack with his teammate as they were leading 1-2, so he's lost the position to both Ewan and Stevens, which will hurt him slightly, especially because track position is most crucial at this stage. But Cameron Dowds, he's in the championship lead for a reason, and hopefully can get himself onto the podium. But for Phil McKee, his teammate, it's looking like clear skies, and he could probably sail to this victory if he plays his cards right.
Yeah, certainly. The safety car, I believe, will be in this lap. Everyone has caught up, and I don't know just yet. It normally says at the start of Sector 3, and there we go. So yeah, safety car will be in this lap, so everything is going to come down to this. We're going to have 3 laps of racing, 3 laps of everyone fighting to try and get the lead. Watch Phil McKee, watch Ewan Lenore, watch Liam Stevens, as those guys all try and make up positions. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute dogfight out there. Everyone's going to be going for whatever moves they can. On a track that's difficult to overtake, people are going to be sending it out of nowhere. So we'll watch Phil McKee now, see what he can do against Wilson Hall's 10-lap old mediums, as he goes very early, and Wilson Hall has already gone. Phil McKee is already woken up, and he's right behind him. He's got the battery on, he's got the slipstream, and I expect he's going to make a move as they go side by side towards turn 1. All we need is clean racing here, and Phil McKee has maybe sealed this win, and Wilson Hall does rightfully back out and Phil McKee is going to be into the lead of this race. Wilson Hall can't do anything to come back at him. Ewan Lenore, though, is going to try and go for a move. Not going to be able to do it. All this is going to help Phil McKee as there's drivers behind as well trying to make moves on each other, but no one really being able to do much. So Phil McKee leading this race as Ewan Lenore gets past Wilson Hall there. Liam Stevens as well is going to try and have a look past Wilson Hall, but he's not going to be able to do it. But they do make a bit of contact on the exit there. Liam Stevens gets a lovely switchback to go round that outside of Wilson Hall, and he's got the position sealed. So those very old mediums really not helping Wilson Hall as we approach the end of this race.
And he might be losing more positions than expected. These guys overtaking him in spots where you wouldn't usually see overtakes, and that's because the grip difference now is absolutely massive. 11 lap all mediums, that's when they start to fall off a cliff, and when you're being put in to a grid with a bunch of fresh soft runners, that you can expect to be falling down the order like a rock in the ocean. But you can see Cameron Dowds is now going to make that overtake down the pit straight, and I'm sure he's not the only one, because Moraviak, Drake Dempsey, they're all getting involved. Drake Dempsey is going to try to go side by side with Moraviak. Doesn't have the speed. DRS not yet enabled, as it will be enabled for the final lap of the Grand Prix, and I think that actually means we won't have any more DRS for the rest of the race. So no more DRS for these guys. You just have to use your pace, your ERS, and your tyres. And for everyone except Wilson Hall's, tyres won't be an issue, as Tripkov sending it into the inside of turn number 7. And he actually loses a position to Tony Reich. That's because he's hit into the side, made a lot of contact with Wilson Hall, and that has actually lost some time in the end. So showing you shouldn't be too aggressive when overtaking on that inside line. So Tony Reich slips up into P7. He's now on the back of the likes of the guys Drake Dempsey, Moraviak, guys who were in contention for the race win. But Fionn McKee, P1 by 1.6 seconds. He is on a fantastic race, fantastic form, and he is looking to fly away with the lead of this Grand Prix. 1.5 seconds ahead of Ewan, and now Ewan has got to focus on defending from Liam Stevens behind. DRS is enabled, but it won't be for this straight. And obviously this is the final lap of the Grand Prix, so no more DRS for these guys into the first chicane. Who's going to try to make a move? Moraviak will be the man to try to make a move on the championship leader. Cameron Dowds realises that he cannot brake late enough and has to allow Dowds to claim that apex. Meanwhile, Drake Dempsey behind takes advantage of it. He sends it into the inside of turn number 5. And a mistake there from Moraviak allows Dempsey into the top 5 positions. Cameron Dowds losing that slipstream there to Liam Stevens, but ahead of him. So can Drake Dempsey find a way past him in the final 2 sectors of the lap time through the fast left, I should say, of turn number 8? And Drake Dempsey just 3.5 tenths behind our championship leader. Liam Stevens also very close to the back of Ewan. And this could be a very interesting battle for the final few positions in this race. Liam Stevens, can he do anything on Ewan coming into the final 2 turns of the circuit? I don't believe he can. He just has not got the straight line speed. I don't think we can expect a move from him coming into this turn now. No. Drake Dempsey has a look, but he can't do anything, which means that Fionn McKee is now going to come across the line to win the Italian Grand Prix after a great performance, a fantastic strategy, and topping it all off with his perfect pace. He wins the race by 1.1 seconds ahead of Ewan, and an exciting race after all of that. And a lot of people who started a bit further down getting all the way to the top of the field. But a fantastic race here at Imola. We didn't expect too many overtakes coming into this race, but obviously that safety car at the end helped out quite a bit, and I think that will be one to remember.
Yeah, very entertaining last few laps sprint there. Phil McKee getting the win and the fastest lap, maximum points haul for him, so very good job for him. Strategy working out to get him in that position, and then having the pace on those soft tyres at the end. Lenore and Stevens rounding out the podium, they'll both be very happy with that. Even Cameron Dowds as well will be very happy with P4, and Drake Dempsey going from P14 to P5. Lots of position change there. I'm sure Frank Morawiak will be slightly disappointed he didn't go with the strategy of Phil McKee, but then again, it was a massive risk, and who knows what it would have been without the safety car. But yeah, very entertaining race. Definitely sets up the championship very nicely.
It definitely does. And Cameron Dowds, once again, very consistent finish from him as he finishes in that top 4, even after qualifying in P11. It doesn't matter to him. He's one of the fastest drivers in the division, and he shows that off once again. Ewan, who started P10, was pretty much nowhere for the race, but when he decided to box for the hards on that strategy, it worked out perfectly for him. And then Liam Stevens also on the podium. Ecclemire, who won the last race, sadly DNF'd along with 3 others to make it 4 DNFs total. But it's Fionn McKee in P1, Ewan in P2 with Stevens in 3rd place. And we have Dowds and Drake Dempsey in P4 and P5. Moraviec dropped down to P6 after starting on pole, with Reach finishing in P7. Tripkov managed to get into the points, with Villacampa falling down to P9. Wilson Hall getting P10, and then everyone outside of the points, it's Lopez, Lav, Laminin, Franco, and then we had Louis Welch, Moldovan, Marquise, Fabos, Trezak, and Ecclemire, and everyone from Moldovan downwards did retire from the race. But a lot more racing action than we might have expected from a circuit like this, and a surprising race winner with a brilliant strategy. And F1 23, it's all about the strategy. It's all about how you perfect it and get it right. So obviously these guys are practicing a lot in their practice lobbies and making sure that their engineers are keeping them well informed. And obviously if you make a right strategy call, you could go like Ewan from P10 to P2. So great job from all of those guys, but only one man can receive Driver of the Day. So, Chiz, if you had to give one man here in Imola Driver of the Day, who would you give it to?
I gotta go Fionn McKee. He had solid pace the whole race, made the bold strategy call, and it worked. And then from the sprint at the end, he got past Wilson Hall incredibly quickly, and then just led from there. It's got to be the perfect race from him. I have to give it to him.
It definitely does, getting full points for himself and Haas as they put on another good performance. And yeah, I think my driver of the day has to be the exact same. He was clearly the fastest driver in the race, clearly had the best strategy, and clearly deserved his race win. So congratulations not only to our race winner McKee, but also Ewan and Liam Stevens for finishing on the podium. But I think that is going to be it for this Italian Grand Prix. Thank you all for joining us for this race. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but as always, we'll make it through it. And thank you, Chiz, for joining me. And hopefully, well, I might not see you next week, but obviously we'll have another race next week. So until then, it's goodbye from us.